All right, welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. And today we are going to take a deeper look into the wisdom of Dr. David R. Hawkins. Classic teachings on spiritual truth and enlightenment. And it is Tuesday, and you know what that means. Time to do the Tao now, I guess. It's not a bad idea. Maybe let's just do a quick reference to the Tao, since we used to do the Tao every Tuesday, and we went through all 81 verses of the Tao Te Ching. And so today we find ourselves looking at the 7th verse of the Tao Te Ching before diving into the wisdom of Dr. David R. Hawkins. Unexpectedly. Thank you for joining me, ladies and gentlemen. It says, "Heaven is eternal. The earth endures. Why do heaven and earth last forever? They do not live for themselves only. This is the secret of their durability. For this reason, the sage puts himself or herself last, and so ends up ahead. He stays a witness to life, so he or she endures. Serve the needs of others, and all of your own needs will be fulfilled through selfless action. Fulfillment is attained." And that is our reference to the Tao Te Ching today for your Tuesday Tao. However, let's continue our series into the wisdom of Dr. David R. Hawkins. If you remember, a couple weeks ago, we took a look at the book entitled Power versus Force. And that may have been too deep for some of us, but what it did was explained a little bit about kinesiology and the beginning of the practice of applied kinesiology, which is very fascinating, just kind of deep and not the easiest thing to wrap your mind around, but once you do it, the questions it poses are profound in themselves. Now, fortunate it is, as the Buddha once said, to be born a human. Even more fortunate it is to be born a human and have heard of enlightenment. And even rarer still is to be born to have heard of enlightenment and then to proceed to pursue this thing called enlightenment. And so now I ask the question, knowing that the roadway to enlightenment takes us through difficult terrain like a walk through a swamp. Back to what David Hawkins was speaking about in his spiritual journey, in the discovery and the power of consciousness connected to the universe, to God. And so what is this force and this power that David Hawkins uses so often to describe these spiritual concepts? And so now we read from the book. Quote, "Force is linear. Force is demarcated and has a form like a molecule. It may have ears on it, eyes, feet, anything. It has structure. Therefore, it is limited. Therefore, it is limited. So it has structure, form, physicality. It is therefore limited. Force, form. This is a way that you could use to remember this. What was it, about, well, I forget which one power was or force was. Force is form. And now, that which has form is obviously limited. It's limited by form. That which is formless is unlimited. Eventually, we can solve every riddle that's ever plagued mankind with this little simple formula. We know that E equals mc squared. This is force limited to form. Power, which is non-dual, infinite. I like to think of it as spiritual. This is going back to our dual nature, looking at Hermetics and the Hermetica and the Corpus Hermeticum that we've been doing on Wednesdays for a long time here on this channel. We used to do the Wisdom of the Ages from Dr. Wayne W. Dyer, which is entitled 60 Days to Enlightenment. But as we found, it's probably 60 lifetimes to enlightenment, unless we go live off in a separated place from normal society. Like all the great spiritual masters that disappeared for 12, 13, 20 years in their lives and then came back, this guru or this wise teacher with this mystical, profound spiritual knowledge, sometimes referred to as occult or esoteric knowledge for the select few or the initiated. Now, back to force and power. Thinking of force being form, our material, physical nature, and power being formless, unlimited, related to our spiritual or divine nature. Human beings being of a dual nature, that is mortal and physical and material, and trapped to the bounds of the mortal experience and survival and all of that. And then also at the same time, divine and spiritual and immortal. And so, with that being said, this is a correlation here for me, taking this from here to the other things that I have learned recently. Now, power, which is non-dual and infinite, power has no limitation. In fact, the greater the demand you put on power, the greater it swells and meets the need. See, that was a teaching about the Tao, is that the Tao has an infinite supply, and it is unlimited because it is the source. It's going back to maybe a description of God, or Atum, as is described in the Hermetic philosophy. And so force, on the other hand, is exhausted easily. I add the easily part. Force goes from here to there. It extends its own energy. You have to constantly stoke force with more and more energy in order to keep it going. More bodies of soldiers, bodies of believers, their gold, their lives, their sweat. You have to pull it out. Now think of those things. That just made me... I was watching a little documentary yesterday, very short actually, which surprised me that they could contain such information in a short format. However, it's one of those things that you could cover in hours and hours and hours of discussion. That being said, the way that the systems of society, from the elite to use us, maybe, would be a way to put it. But thinking about this force, and then thinking about it from the perspective of something you have to constantly feed it more energy, and it steals the energy from power. True Tao-centered living, or God-centered living, Atum, divine, living a God-centered life. But then there is the structures in society that require more money, that require more bodies of soldiers, more bodies of believers. It's fascinating. The financial, the military, and the spiritual complexes that require our gold or our money or our lives or even our sweat and our toil to work and contribute to society and create a life for ourselves, which is all fine, those last couple things. But doing that through supporting the corporations that cause the soldiers, I'm getting off on a tangent. Anyways, if that's something you're interested in, then leave me a comment and let me know, because that's a different topic. But it is so interesting how you could relate this concept of power versus force to these ideas. And so going back to what I was just discussing there, this force stealing from the power and requiring soldiers and believers and money, our money and sweat. You have to pull it out, the book says. The Roman Empire, which was the greatest empire the world had ever seen, petered out after 1,000 years, or so they say. Force is limited. Power, on the other hand, is unlimited. Very fascinating, and that is a deep, deep subject that, like I said a moment ago, could be discussed for hours on end. But we'll move on now to the section entitled Truth and Subjectivity, which is another area of the classic wisdom of Dr. David R. Hawkins, and a deeper insight into spiritual wisdom and understanding. Forgetting value, thank you for being here. It's always great to see those of you that join me here weekly in the premieres, in the live chat, so we can say what's up and how you doing, and hopefully everybody's well, and go back and forth on some of these concepts. And I hope you got yourself a beverage, some tea. I got a cold infusion tea today. There was a nice little rain coming down a little bit ago, so I hope it's beautiful wherever you are, and I hope you are well. And I hope you're ready, because we're going to do truth and subjectivity, and we'll see, we might dive into calibrating the consciousness level of mankind. But first, what is this truth and subjectivity? David Hawkins is a deep thinker, and so there is a lot that we can learn from this enlightened, some may say, mind. He begins by saying, quote, "When you define what is truth, it's impossible to define truth without defining the context. And that is the reason that all of the greatest philosophers that have ever lived have never solved the problems of epistemology, because they never got that subtlety, the context, so to speak. You move, now this may be deep, so focus here. You move from the objective observer or viewpoint to the subjective, idea or philosophy. And so the objective will take you up to 499 on the map of consciousness from Dr. David R. Hawkins. I don't know if we have showed that map yet. I mean, we have on this channel years ago, but not more recently. And so I'm seeing if I can find that map somewhere here in the book. I'm surprised it's not just popping out right to me. Well, we've done this before, so let's do this a different way, and we'll do a quick screen share here, ladies and gentlemen. So Dr. David R. Hawkins even apparently has his own book entitled The Map of Consciousness Explained, of course. But this map of consciousness for Dr. David R. Hawkins, which there's a little over here in the corner that you can see, it's hard to get it much larger, but simply it goes up through levels of shame to guilt to apathy to grief. That's 20 to 75. And the emotional states expressed by each of these are humiliation, blame, despair, regret. And then it goes up to fear at the level of 100, which is anxiety. And then fear transcends to desire. This is in the book Transcending the Levels of Consciousness, and it goes through and explains each of these in extreme depth. But desire, it's important to distinctualize, has more energy than fear. So therefore, even though it is below neutrality, it is better than fear, which is odd. Then from desire, we go to anger. Anger is above desire. Emotional state being hate, and then up to pride. And then eventually you break through from the negative survival paradigm of consciousness. Once again, these are the levels of consciousness measured by an energetic log, emotional states, view of life, a God view, and a process, which is a powerful, powerful book. I haven't got the map of consciousness explained, but we go from 20 to 1,000, enlightenment being the level of 700 to 1,000, which is in an ineffable emotional state, bliss, serenity, joy, peace. All of this being above love, reference, reason, and understanding. And then above courage itself, back down to 200, was neutrality, willingness, acceptance, and then up to reason, love, joy, peace, and enlightenment. So there is a quick look. You can dive deeper personally into checking that out and seeing how you may have relation to that area or any of those levels of consciousness at different times in your life. Because somebody wants to ask me when I brought up this subject and the levels of consciousness in the past, they said, well, how do I increase my level of consciousness? And my first thought was through spiritual practice. And that's a deep discussion in its own, which we do on this channel all the time anyways. And so be sure to tune in or check out any of our past videos. But I found out that the answer is actually, it's not like a video game system where you're leveling up and you're down here, and as you grow in this spiritual, I call it spiritual materialism nowadays, trying to seek the spiritual points, like, oh, I meditated 50 times, look at how spiritual I am. But really, it is a satori, which means an instant enlightenment, or an instance, or a momentary enlightenment, which means that you bounce around on the scale. One moment, you could be down in grief and fear and apathy, and the next moment, you could jump all the way up to courage and willingness, and then acceptance. And one moment, you could be in fear again and feel guilty from blame. And all of a sudden, 2 hours later, you're feeling joy and peace, and sometimes even enlightenment, or a pure consciousness through a mystical or deep spiritual experience. But my point there being is that it's not like we're just leveling up. And so let's continue now after looking at that. I mean, we are leveling up our ability to maintain, because, Wayne Dyer once said, what's the difference between us normal people and enlightened people? And he said, well, there's really no difference. I mean, we all have different kinds of thoughts. The only difference is that enlightened people don't have as much of these negative thoughts. I said that wrong, but that's the point anyways, is that we all have thoughts, except enlightened people just don't have any of the bad ones. He says it better than I do. So back to this idea of truth and subjectivity. And so the objective versus the subjective, and truth versus subjectivity. The objective will take you up to 499 on the map of consciousness, which gets us all the way to love or reason. So we're almost in that spiritual area rather than survival or integrity. And so, with that being said, and from there you can move into the subjective. The presence of God is not something one can experience through thought, the book says and continues, but experientially, it is subjective. Like I've always said, you know God through conscious contact, not by, intellectual debate. And so, what kinesiology or consciousness calibration shows us is that consciousness itself recognizes the presence of truth. At first, I thought it was truth versus falsehood. I thought consciousness knows the truth from the false. Actually, consciousness itself recognizes the presence of truth. It only knows the truth and the not true, which is a subtle difference to truth from falsehood. And so you see how that gets us out of polarity, opposites, duality. And you can also see then, if you've caught the subtlety to that there is such a great subtlety to all of this. So it gets you out of the spiritual guilt of the polarity of opposites, where you like this and hate that, and you feel guilty because you're supposed to be spiritual and not hate anything. And so this goes back to when doing applied kinesiology, what we read about, if you missed the bit that we read in Power versus Force a couple weeks ago, check that out. I should have a playlist entitled that, but it was talking about how you can judge anything using this applied kinesiology through consciousness itself, collective consciousness, to determine whether things give strong or weak responses. In other words, whether things are good or bad for us. And this was not only as far as physical tangible things like foods. The most often referenced was artificial sweeteners versus natural sweeteners, which the artificial would give a strong or weak or negative response, and the natural would give a strong or positive response. And so, but that always begged the question, well, isn't God or the universe or consciousness non-dual, and there is no good or bad? It is all a continuum of the oneness, of the polarity, as we discussed in Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, and discovering the wisdom of the Tao and wisdom of the ages, with all the poets and philosophers and mystics in there, as well as the Hermetica and the entire series we did on that, and Hermetics in general, and everything that we've talked about on this channel about discovering the nature of reality and God, which is why we're here, to seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment, through a greater awareness and understanding of that and ourselves. And so, with all of that being said, it begs the question how this testing of a dual, a truth versus a falsehood, or good versus bad, a judgmental perspective, how could a oneness that is all of it at once, and there is no separate nature, that's just a physical material thing, rather than a divine or God universal thing, And so if you're not following me with all of this, then you've probably missed a lot of what we've done on this channel already. And if you are following me and you have missed what we've done on this channel already, then you are on the journey, and you are one of the few that are on this path with us, that are here. So thank you for being here. And I'll continue. This subtlety. He says, you see how that gets us out of polarity. And there's a subtlety that gets you out of this idea of duality and opposites and the spiritual guilt of the polarity of the opposites, where you like this and hate that, and you feel guilty because you're supposed to be spiritual and not hate everything. This is confusing for those of us on this spiritual path. Like, well, should I then not hate the darkness and be accepting of evil, vindictive, and destructive things? And these are the ultimate questions that we're getting at here, where he was saying that the philosophers, all of the greatest philosophers, have debated these subjects for years, because it goes from an area of subjective, objective, to the subjective. And so, actually, the book continues, consciousness itself recognizes the presence of truth. It only knows the truth and the not true. See, there's chocolate and vanilla. So he's going to give us an example here, thankfully, because as even I have come to find, the more that I read Dr. David Hawkins, I'm like, holy cow, this guy is deep. And he's talking about a lot of stuff here. So take this with some fun and a grain of salt, ladies and gentlemen, and absorb what you can, because this is another one of those areas of constant contemplation and meditation. So see, there's chocolate and vanilla. You can like chocolate without hating vanilla. You don't have to hate vanilla. You can just choose chocolate. You can be conservative and not hate the liberals because they're all vanilla. Other way around, if that's your way of thinking. I'm very impartial about all of that, ladies and gentlemen, because to me, it's all just a system that's been running for 2,000 years to create a determined outcome that's planned hundreds of years in advance anyway. So to me, it's all a silly Broadway show to keep the undereducated entertained. But with that being said, you don't have to hate vanilla. And if you're political on one side, you can not hate the others, because they're all just vanilla. They can be vanilla, and they don't have to hate whoever you are because they're chocolate. They can all just like vanilla and say to themselves, I don't know how you digest that chocolate, but that's your problem, you know? One chocolate guy says, vanilla is for wimps. If you like vanilla, you like vanilla, but us guys, we like chocolate. You can champion your cause, as you see in this metaphor, all you want. You can tell others that we're the greatest and we're better than you, and tattoo yourselves and make parades and all that. But you don't, most importantly, and this is a great lesson, have to get into hate. That was a powerful little lesson there at the end. I don't know if I've heard it put like that. You can champion your cause of vanilla is better than chocolate, or chocolate is better than, but you can tell others that you're the greatest and make parades and all of that. But you don't have to hate the other side. And this is something that has happened so much lately, dealing with politics and the polarity of it all, is there is a hate for the other side, which is too bad, because true knowledge comes from open debate, civilized debate without destroying the other side. There's two ways to build a building: build the tallest building or destroy everybody else's buildings. And it seems like today a lot of people are in the business of just tearing down buildings and being destructive and despondent and eliminating as much as they possibly can that doesn't support their own ideas, when true knowledge comes from being able to hold two opposing ideas simultaneously and leave room for discussion. So with that being said, I think we'll leave it there for today, because next Tuesday we'll be getting into calibrating the consciousness level of mankind. The purpose of our discussion here, of course, is to potentiate the evolution of consciousness. And the only purpose of the books Dr. David R. Hawkins says that I've written, or the lectures I've given, is to support the progression of that consciousness within the individual who has elected to pursue a higher level of consciousness for himself, for ourselves, and those around us, and the world, so that in the future we may reach the 100th monkey, or the phase transition. I think there's another name for it, but once enough electrons get to a certain polarity or charge, the rest of them seem to instantaneously, once you get enough of them, the rest go whoop, and it's all aligned. And this, if you've never heard of the 100th monkey story or phase transition in quantum physics, I believe, feel free to correct me there in the comments, but this is what the purpose of all of this is, and the purpose of all of this spiritual striving to attain true knowledge through constant contemplation of, as Hermes or Thoth would put it, the Egyptian sage god, of Atum, the one God, or reality, and the nature of the cosmos, and the harmony of nature itself. To understand and create a higher quality of life for not only ourselves, but for those around us, by increasing our level of consciousness and getting closer, ladies and gentlemen, to the golden age. I mean, hopefully that's where we're going to. I believe we've come out of the dark ages now, and we are headed back to a time of enlightenment. There are historians that would say we have just come out of the time of enlightenment. And I would say that's a funny description because we have a long way to go. But hopefully, as I like to believe, the things are getting better than they ever have before, faster than they ever have been before, faster than the most optimistic of us could possibly imagine. And so, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment, through greater awareness and understanding of the nature of reality and ourselves, and seek to discover the hidden wisdom of the ages, in this case, the wisdom of Dr. David R. Hawkins, more recent times, but also the mysteries of our history. And remember that there is no way to enlightenment, because enlightenment is the way. I normally say happiness, but it's the same thing in this process, that it is what we must learn how to bring to life. Instead of telling ourselves, oh, I'll be, happy or enlightened when I'm this kind of person, and I've achieved these amount of things, and or I have this much, and all of that is irrelevant, because if we can bring it, happiness, enlightenment, joy, peace, all of the things that we're seeking after to get outside of ourselves, if we can create these things from within ourselves through practice and study and research and more practice, we can then create an ability to bring these things from within ourselves to life. And then hopefully the entire journey is wonderful. All right. Thank you so much. I love and appreciate all of you spending time here with me, especially those of you in the Premier chat room. It's great to see you. A shout out to all of you, and thank you to Gorilla Press for purchasing more of my landscape paintings. I need to do more updating on the shop because I think we only got a couple listings on there at the moment, but it's always nice to get some nice art out to someone who supports my work here in the channel. And so if you do want to support us, be sure to expand the description below the video and find a link to the Etsy shop, as well as a link to the book to get it for yourself, to put it on your shelf, because that does actually help me. It gives me a little bit. It's funny, you can all ramble now here at the end, but you can create an Amazon affiliate account to where you can link products to your videos, under your videos, or on your website, or wherever that be on the internet. And if people click the links and then go to Amazon and purchase products through your links, you get a commission, which is probably like 10 cents. I've earned, I think it was like $1 in the lifetime of trying to do it, but I've never, you get like 180 days or something to accumulate an approved amount of commission so they can approve your affiliate profile. And I always get declined. I think it's been 8 times or something, 8 or 10 times where I've been declined, but I just keep reapplying because I want to have the links there for you to get the book for yourself, to put it on your shelf. So hopefully one day, once there's enough of us here on this journey together, I might make more than $1 from it, but that's not the purpose. It's just fun to try to do those things in the background because, I mean, why else would we be here? Seeking after to discover, I mean, this is a lifelong journey. So if we're going to do it, we have to be able to make it practical for ourselves and our lives. Like I said in the beginning of this video, if we're not the kind of people that just go off and live at a temple and escape from normal society and all of the demands that the material world puts on us, then we're going to have to do both at the same time. We're going to have to be spiritual seekers, continuing the process of increasing our levels of consciousness while existing and functioning within society and the world. And that is the ultimate challenge. It reminds me of the 10th bull in Zen philosophy, I believe, to where at the 9th bull, for the longest time, you would go through these levels of enlightenment and you would become the Buddha or become enlightened, and you would just be gone. You had transcended the physical world or society, and you were, quote unquote, a stone Buddha. You were just a rock there. In mind, transcended the realm, and you were part of God. Pure consciousness, self, all being, illumination. And then there is later this philosophy that came that was the 10th bull, that even though you reach this point, you must come back and bring the wisdom back with you and try to exist and help the world with this enlightened consciousness, enlightened level of consciousness, this new perspective and awareness. And so that leads me to where we'll finish, which is before enlightenment, chopping wood and carrying water. After enlightenment, chopping wood and carrying water. Except now is so much better with a new perspective. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I love and appreciate each and every one of you. Be sure to like and subscribe and share this with people that are like-minded and support the work we do here on the channel. And I will see you tomorrow on Wednesday Wisdom, diving deeper into the lost wisdom of the pharaohs and the corpus hermeticum and hermetics. Until then, be the change that you want to see. Be the example that you want to set.